All right. Well, I think it's time to get started on this. Just give me a moment while I get situated, and yeah. So I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing fine. It's been a while since I've made a video. In fact, it's been a very long while. And I imagine that some of you probably thought I was dead. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I am not dead. I am very much alive. At least I think I am. And yeah, happy to be so. So long may that situation continue. But today I'm working on a sculpture that I've decided to revisit. Actually, I started this quite a long time ago, and it's been sitting on my drive, and I thought, well, why don't I just finish this? Because I've got this bad sort of a problem that I tend to start things, and then I get distracted, and then they never get finished. I forget about them. I move on to other things, other more pressing jobs, and pretty soon, before you know it, I've got a drive full of incomplete projects. So, I think I've come to a point where I've decided that, I'm not going to allow that to be the case any longer, and I'm just going to press on and get things finished. So that's what this is all about. One of the things I think that leads to this situation happening, for me at least, is that I've got this terrible problem with perfectionism. And I get going on something, and then, I'm happy with it to a certain extent, but not quite. And then I just keep going round and round in circles trying to improve things. And I kind of get to a point where I'm never satisfied, and no matter what I do. And that's a real problem. Perfectionism is, in my view, not a good thing. I think it's important to strive to do the best work that you can possibly do, but I think perfectionism is, I think it's counterproductive to a very large extent. And so I'm trying to more and more disregard these sort of feelings that I have about never being satisfied, or feeling that what I've done is in some way lacking, and just to move on and press forward and keep going, no matter what, and just to get these things finished. Wow, I mean, it's amazing how many projects I've got just laying around that are either nearly finished, or somewhat finished, or barely even started, and all sorts of states of production, and I don't know. It's I drive myself crazy. Is that something that you find that happens to you? I know it's been a problem for me my entire life, and I don't know. I've been doing a lot of self-introspection, and a lot of deep thinking about the way I approach things. And yeah, I'm trying to make some changes, and I'm trying to change the way that I approach things to see what the results can be. And I think that's a good thing, because it's easy to get stuck in a rut. You kind of carry on doing things the same way year after year, and I don't know. I think that, it's important to hone your techniques constantly. But I think sometimes, you can become sort of complacent. And if you do things the same way all the time, over and over again, I don't know, I think sometimes you miss out on finding things or stumbling upon things that can really maybe help you move forward in a way that wouldn't be apparent otherwise. So, yeah, I'm just trying to change things up and trying to do things a bit differently from now on. So, yeah, you may notice here that I'm using an application called 3D Coat, and, well, it's an application that I've been using pretty much since the day that it came out. And I've got sort of a love-hate relationship with it. I mean, I think it's quite an excellent application in many respects, but there are things about it that I don't like. And I mostly use ZBrush for the majority of my sculpting work, but there's some things about 3D Coat that I really enjoy. And one of the things that I like about working with 3D Coat is that it, for me at least, in the initial sort of blocking in stage where I'm at right here, I find that it's great because I'm a traditional clay sculptor. I mean, that's how I learned to work, was using clay. And for me, at least in the blocking in phase, I really like the sort of fluidity that working with voxels gives me in 3D Coat. And that's something that, I mean, don't get me wrong, ZBrush is great. And for me, doing detailed work in ZBrush is where ZBrush really shines. I just don't feel that 3D Coat, that the brushes are, I don't know, there's something about the feel of the brushes here in 3D Coat that I don't find nearly as nice as the ones in ZBrush. ZBrush, the brushes there give me a feel that's, I don't know, I find it very consistent and I like it and it feels natural to me, whereas one of the problems I have with 3D Coat is that I don't know, it works great, but sometimes it'll do things that I don't expect it to do, or the things that it does I don't like. I find that it tends to be a little bit unpredictable sometimes, and so I tend to be very careful in how I work with it. I tend to work more methodically with 3D Coat, and for example, this scrape brush that I'm using here, I use it a lot because if I was working with, a traditional clay model, I would probably use a rake or some sort of similar tool to, scrape down the clay, just like I'm doing here. The problem I find with 3D Coat is sometimes I'll be scraping away and it'll take a bigger bite than I would expect that it should, or sometimes it just refuses to take a big bite when I want it to, and I find this very frustrating. So yeah, it's I don't know. I find 3D Coat is a little bit unpredictable, whereas ZBrush I find I I don't know. ZBrush for me, it's just it feels more intuitive and stable and like the kind of feeling I would get if I was working in a more traditional kind of media. But I don't know. I just think both applications have their own sort of areas where they shine. And I just find that ZBrush is really, really great for doing detailed work. And I find that working in voxels is a lot nicer when you're just trying to block in basic forms, put things together. And for me, that's what I love about 3D Coat, because I can mash things together. I can work in ways that I don't know. For me, it's a more of a hands-on kind of feel that I enjoy. So yeah, I think it's pretty great, and it's 3D Coat. It's really a very unique tool. It's in some ways it's a little weird. I really do think that if you look at a lot of the brushes that are available in 3D Coat, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of redundancy. I don't think that all these brushes are maybe completely necessary, and sometimes it's difficult to know how they vary from one another. I mean, what's the difference, exactly between the wet clay and the base clay, or the soft clay? I don't know. I mean, I've tried them all, and they kind of, I don't know, they don't seem that different to me. I'm sure they must vary in certain ways that the developers had in mind, but to be honest with you, it's a little unclear, to me at least, what the differences are. So, I would like to see the developers do a better job at documenting, what their intentions are for these particular tools, because, like I say, there's lots of them, and it's not really clear, exactly what the hell they're supposed to do. Honestly, though, if I think about this, ZBrush sort of suffers from the same thing, because ZBrush has like tens of thousands of brushes. Well, not actually, but you know what I mean. It's got a load of them. And out of all the brushes that are available, I mean, how many of them do you actually use during a session? Probably not that many. I personally only use a handful of brushes. The brushes I tend to work with the most are like the clay brush, clay buildup, standard brush, dam standard, smooth, flatten, those kind of things. I use probably for 99% of the work that I do. Here in 3D Coat, I use a few of the clay brushes. The scrape tool, as I'm using here, I use a lot. And, the smooth tool, and that's really it. I use the move brush when I have to make large changes in order to push and pull the clay around. But it's not like I use dozens and dozens of brushes, or every brush that's available. I only use a handful of them, and the rest of them seem, redundant. And this is another thing about 3D Coat. I mean, 3D Coat has like just an enormous amount of tools, but it's like, I don't know, how many of them are really all that useful or work that well? I mean, certainly some of them come in, unbelievable handy when you need them. But, for the most part, you're really not using most of them. So, I don't know. I kind of feel like it would be better if the interface wasn't as cluttered with as much stuff, and the stuff that's there, it would be nice to know, like, what the hell it's there for, because, I don't know, it's not well documented, as far as I'm concerned. Um, well, there's a forum, obviously, but it's kind of, I don't know. I never seem to. I mean, sometimes I get the answers that I'm looking for when I ask, but more often than not, I don't. And I just think it would be really, really nice if there was some good documentation available for this, which, went into some sort of depth in terms of the explanation, what each one of these things, actually does and what it's for. Because I spend a great deal of time running through every single function on these applications, trying to, determine what the developers had in mind. And, honestly, there's a few of them to this day. I don't know what the hell, they do or why they're there. And it's like, yeah, maybe we don't really need these things. Or, maybe it's great that they're there, but maybe they shouldn't be so prominent in the interface. I'd prefer myself, at least, to have a very clean, tidy interface with fewer tools everywhere. And I mean, one thing about 3D Coat, well, I suppose it's funny to be complaining about the interface when I use ZBrush as much as I do, because let's face it, the ZBrush interface is it's not normal. It's like, I don't know, that user interface is developed, with alien technology in mind. It's not, doesn't adhere to any kind of normal GUI design. But hey, there you have it. But back to 3D Coat here. I mean, I think the problem, at least for me, is that there's all these, windows and panels and things popping up, and it's like, hey, do I need to see all of these things? I mean, it'd be nice if it was just cleaner and less sort of cluttered. Be a lot easier to understand and to deal with. But, that's just how it is. So, try to make the best of the situation and deal with it anyway. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that really love it and think it's great, and that are just, completely pleased with how it is. And if that's you, great. I mean, you do you. That's my motto. But for me, I'd like to see a little bit less mess. That would make me happy. So yeah, I'm just continuing to just scrape away, trying to improve the shape of the head here, and I just tend to take little nibbles, little by little. I turn the model, take a few more nibbles, readjust, smooth, and this is just the process. I think we're heading in the right direction. Fairly pleased with how this is looking. Well, I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, guys. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm just thinking. I don't know about you, but I when I'm in the middle of a project like this, I just get so sort of engrossed in what I'm doing that thinking and talking and speaking and doing recording the screen and all that. Yeah, I better save this because 3D Coat does crash from time to time, and it's not nice to lose all the work that you've done just because you neglected to do a save. So yeah, save your work. Always save your work. All right, well, that's all for me. Take care, and I'll see you all again.